Got it, sir. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is the public hearing and public meeting of the Committee of the Whole regarding bills number 260056, 260057, 260058, 260059, 260060, 260061, and 260062. Mr. Christmas, will you please call attendance?
Councilmember Squilla. Councilmember Gaudier. Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Young. Councilmember Driscoll. Councilmember Lozada. Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Phillips. Councilmember O'Neill. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Harity. Councilmember Ahmad. Councilmember Landau. Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember O'Rourke. Councilmember Johnson.
Woo! Thank you, Mr. Christmas. A quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. Mr. Christmas, will you please read the title of the bills?
Bill number 260056, an ordinance amending Title 20 of the Philadelphia Code by adding a new chapter 21-3600 entitled Non-Intervention with respect to immigration enforcement to place certain restrictions on the collection and use of information related to citizenship and immigration status, prohibit certain forms of discrimination in city services, and provide for remedies for violations, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 260057, an ordinance amending Title 21 of the Philadelphia Code by adding a new chapter 21-3600 entitled Non-Intervention with respect to immigration enforcement to establish certain limits on how personal information may be handled by the city with regard to immigration enforcement, create reporting requirements, and provide for remedies for violations, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 260058, an ordinance amending Chapter 9-1100 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fair Practices Ordinance, Protections Against Unlawful Discrimination, to add protections against discrimination on the basis of citizenship and immigration status, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 260059, an ordinance amending Title 1700 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Procurement Contracts, and Title 21 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Miscellaneous, to prohibit the acceptance of bids on city contracts from or the execution of contracts with entities that do business with immigration enforcement authorities, bar city participation in resource expenditures to and involvement in any agreements or activities in furtherance of immigration enforcement, including through the conduct of its employees, contractors, and funding recipients, require annual reporting of city immigration-related activities, and provide for civil enforcement of violations, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 260060, an ordinance amending Title 10 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Regulation of Individual Conduct and Activity to prohibit law enforcement officers from concealing their identity, require officers to visibly display their badge and other official identifying information, prohibit the impersonation of law enforcement officers, and provide for civil and criminal enforcement of violations, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 260061, an ordinance amending Title 10 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Regulation of Individual Conduct and Activity, and amending Title 11 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Streets to prohibit immigration enforcement on city and city-related property and facilities, to prohibit immigration enforcement in the right-of-way, and provide for civil enforcement of violations, all under certain terms and conditions. And finally, Bill number 260062, an ordinance amending Title 10 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Regulation of Individual Conduct and Activity to restrict the use of community spaces for government purposes not expressly authorized by the city or the courts, and provide for civil enforcement of violations, all under certain terms and conditions.
Before we begin taking testimony, I would like to acknowledge that the matters we consider today are important, and this hearing is taking place at a time where there is a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, and very strong feelings about increased immigration enforcement around the nation, as well as in the city of Philadelphia. I want to remind everyone that this chamber is a place for thoughtful discussion and respectful discourse. To make sure that everyone's voice is heard, we will follow rules and time limits. I ask for cooperation from everyone in the room so we can maintain a constructive environment to address the important issues being discussed today. Also, I want to thank Member Kendra Brooks and Councilman Rue Landau as the 2nd District Councilman representing the 2nd District covering the areas of South Philadelphia, Southwest Philadelphia, and parts of Center City. Particularly in Southwest Philadelphia, I have a very, very strong African and Caribbean immigrant population, as well as in South Philadelphia, I have a very, very strong Asian and Latino immigrant population. So I thank them for their leadership on this package of legislation. And at this time, the chair recognizes Councilman Rue Landau to open up remarks, and then Councilman Kendra Brooks to open up remarks.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you to my colleagues joining us today, especially to Minority Leader Kendra Brooks, who I am so proud to stand alongside in introducing this legislation. Thank you as well to the Pennsylvania Immigrant Coalition, Make the Road PA, Asian Americans United, New Sanctuary Movement, National Domestic Workers Alliance, Juntos, the Worry Center, the Victim Witness Service Center of South Philadelphia, and many more who work to make this legislation as strong and as representative of Philadelphians' goals as possible during the last few months. I also want to thank the advocates, the organizers, and the working Philadelphians who are here today. Many of you took off work, rearranged your lives, and showed up in this building to make your voices heard. You are the reason we are here. As we approach the 250th anniversary of this country, we are going to hear a lot about freedom, about liberty, about the founding ideals of America. We're going to celebrate the courage and vision of those who have built this nation. But we have a responsibility to relay that history truthfully. This is a nation built by immigrants. That is the story of who we are as a country and the shoulders upon whom we stand. The story lives on in our communities. It's in our blocks, our schools, our small businesses, and our families. It is woven into the fabric of Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty and the starting point of our democracy. That's why it's especially important here in Philadelphia to remember that democracy asks something of us. It asks us not to look away. More so, it asks us to continually participate in its defense, especially when fascism rears its head and bangs its fist on the door. My family immigrated to the United States in 1908 when my grandfather was a baby. A family friend warned our family that they were not safe in Germany, that staying could cost them their lives. That warning saved generations of my family. One life saved becomes families and futures. That story stays with me today as we witness families torn apart by ICE. People disappeared into detention and others sent to countries they barely remember. History does not repeat itself exactly, but it echoes loudly and it reverberates in the lives of those of us who are affected for generations. When we allow cruelty to masquerade as security, we lose our freedom. And it's clear as day, we've seen this playbook before. At a time when we see federal immigration enforcement tactics ripping families apart, sowing fear in our communities, making people afraid to go to work, send their kids to school, or even report a crime, City Council has a responsibility to act. Because public safety does not come from fear, it comes from trust. It comes from people knowing that their city sees them, values them, and will protect them. This is what the ICE Out package is about. This legislation draws a clear line. Philadelphia will not be complicit in policies that undermine the safety and dignity of our neighbors. Philadelphia will not use our resources to destabilize communities. Philadelphia will not turn its back on the very people who make this city. This is not new territory for Philadelphia. We've been a welcoming city. We believe in protecting immigrant communities. Our values have long been rooted in inclusion, dignity, and respect. I know this firsthand as the former head of the PCHR, having worked on the city's non-discrimination executive orders and the non-collaboration with federal immigration enforcement executive orders under Michael Nutter, that the last one was reestablished under Mayor Kenny. But being a welcoming city cannot just be branding. It cannot just be something we put on a website or say at a press conference. It has to mean something in people's real, everyday lives. It has to show up. It has to show up in how every agency operates every single day. If our policies look good on paper but fail in practice, then we are not truly welcoming. We are offering a promise we are not prepared to keep. And for the families living with that uncertainty, that gap between words and reality is not theoretical. It's the difference between safety and fear. It's the difference between stability and chaos. It is the difference between whether a parent comes home at night or does not. This hearing, the legislation are about closing that gap between what we say and what we do. Let me be very clear about one thing. When Philadelphia City Council passes the ICE Out legislative package, and we intend to, our expectation is not that these bills sit on a shelf. Our expectation is that they are implemented fully, faithfully, without exception. Now is the time for us to be bold, creative, and to lead. Anything less is a choice to ignore the demands of Philadelphians and to look the other way. A choice to leave communities vulnerable. A choice to turn our back on our responsibility as Philadelphians to protect our neighbors. Hate thrives in silence. It grows when we fail to protect the most vulnerable among us. That's why we must act in our communities, stand up for our neighbors, call out discrimination when we see it, and say, ICE out of Philadelphia now. And the people of Philadelphia, of this city are watching, not for what we say, but for what we do. Thank you again for every Philadelphian taking the time to tune in, show up, and make your voice heard today. And thank you, Council President, for allowing us to have this forum and this hearing.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Minority Leader and the Leader of the Working Families Party, Councilmember Kendra Brooks.
Thank you so much, Council President. Before we get started today, I wanted to give a few remarks about my thoughts about this legislation and what is taking place in this country since Trump was reelected. I wanted to answer two questions. Why are we here today, and why it's important for this body to pass out this ICE Out package? Council President said it best. After the horrific murders we saw earlier this year in Minneapolis, this moment calls for activism, and we must we must be an activist city in the face of federal government overreach. As we sit here today, can anybody in this room tell me the identities of the ICE agents who murdered Renee Nicole Good or Alice Pettit? No, no one can, because it has been covered up in hopes that we forget. We need ICE out of the shadows. When my office started working on this legislation, it was asking what they can do to protect their neighbors and communities. People wanted to see our city take more active role in stopping ICE. I want to state this clearly. I reject the notion that if we somehow stay silent, we will remain in the good graces of the Trump administration. And furthermore, if we are more worried about poking the bear than protecting our own, we are letting our city be bullied. And that's unacceptable in a city as gritty as ours. That's why the first thing my office did was start an ICE Out community trainings to educate people about their rights. To date, my office has held over 50 trainings across the city and throughout the state. The thousands who showed up to get educated wanted answers about what they could do about ICE. I've heard it over and over again that people at the trainings want to know, what are we doing to protect this city? With the ICE Out package, we are showing them, watch what we do, not what we say. Today, I hope to get answers about what the administration has been doing. With ICE set to receive billions in new funding, buying detention centers in surrounding counties, and routinely being deployed by police, deployed to police our cities, silence is no longer an option. To my colleagues on your desk, each of you have a packet listing the names and zip codes of over 1,000 Philadelphians who signed on in support of our ICE Out legislation. We printed these packets on Friday, but since then, another 1,000 people have signed on just over the weekend. You also have a list of the over 70 local organizations that have signed on in support, including ACLU-PA, Philadelphia AFL-CIO, PFT, SEIU 32BJ, DC 47, and Unite Here. This package of legislation is one of the most comprehensive efforts from a local government to step up and meet the moment. We pulled from cities across the country who have experienced the worst abuses of ICE and the Trump administration. We consulted with the district attorney and legal experts who have deep knowledge of the subject matter. We worked hand in hand with the immigrant advocacy organizations right here in Philly who see the fear and confusion every day amongst their membership that the ICE is causing. Many of these organizations shared with us the hope that they would see our city do, the hope that they had that our city would be doing more. I share that hope and let today be the first step. This conversation does not start and stop with this hearing, but today is incredibly important. Our neighbors in Bucks and Montgomery County and Delco County have all passed policies to limit ICE powers. Cities like Reading, Allentown are stepping up across the Commonwealth. Peer cities like Chicago and New York City are putting in new policies. Our neighbors in New Jersey are working on similar legislation. There is no more need for silence or delay. Let's get this done for our city. Thank you so much.
At this time, Mr. John Christmas, could you please call the first witnesses to testify?
Mr. Charlie Ellison, Director of the Office of Immigrant Affairs. And joining him is the City Solicitor, Renee Garcia, and Deputy Police Commissioner Fran Haley, and Greg Verado, Chief of Staff, Department of Prisons, each for possible questions. Mr. Ellison, if you're ready, Mr. President, you may state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Good morning, Council President. Charles Ellison, Executive Director for the City of Philadelphia for our Office of Immigrant Affairs.
Good morning.
All right, good morning, Council President Johnson and members of City Council. As you just heard, my name is Charlie Ellison. I lead our city's Office of Immigrant Affairs. I am here to testify on bills number 260056, 260057, and 260058, introduced by Councilmember Landau, and bill numbers 260059, 260060, 260061, and 260062, introduced by Councilmember Brooks. I am joined by our representatives from our Law Department, Police Department, and Prisons to help us answer questions as needed. Now first, I want to begin by unequivocally stating that we understand and appreciate the intent behind this legislation. Now we know that the City Council shares the vision of Mayor Sherelle L. Parker, which is to make Philadelphia the safest, cleanest, greenest big city in the nation, and with access to economic opportunity for all. The focus of this legislation is safety, and in particular, safety for some of Philadelphia's most vulnerable immigrants, our undocumented communities and their families. Now more than ever, our most vulnerable Philadelphians, many of whom are simply a U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services adjudication or an immigration court decision away from what our federal agencies would call lawful presence or immigration status in the United States. And now more than ever, we are seeing increasingly long wait times and backlogs just for those adjudications, just for those interviews. Immigration asylum cases can take as long as 6 years for many Philadelphians. Just to get an interview at USCIS right now, it can take as long as 3 years for many of our vulnerable community members. We recognize that these federal backlogs are having compounding public safety impacts on our already vulnerable communities and our community members. Now, while I have only worked for Mayor Parker for a relatively short time, many of you have known her and worked with her for much longer. From the time our mayor was a council staffer, to when she was a member of the State House, to when she was a member of this council body, and now as mayor, nobody has ever accused the mayor of refusing to stand up and fight. She has been and remains unapologetic about affirming the health and safety of Philadelphians. Mayor Parker and this administration have repeatedly, publicly stated, unequivocally affirmed that Executive Orders 809 and 516, which are our long-standing executive orders on immigration, remain in place. And they will continue to remain in place under her administration. Furthermore, the Parker administration understands and appreciates the countless contributions made by immigrants, by new Americans, to our communities, to our economy, to our arts, culture, to our meds and educational institutions in this city, to our collective American identity. This administration takes measures every single day to protect our most vulnerable immigrant communities, such as more than doubling the city's contribution to our Pennsylvania Immigrant Family Unity Project, known as PIFA, to nearly $950,000. I'm incredibly proud of the hard work that our immigration attorneys do every day in this realm of keeping our vulnerable community members safe and lawfully present or present in this nation. Additionally, we're enhancing the city's financial commitments to organizations like the Welcoming Center, deepening and broadening our support to our immigrant-owned businesses through Mayor's Business Action Teams and a number of initiatives at our Commerce Department. I'm incredibly proud of the hard work every day of our Office of Worker Protections, making sure that in these vulnerable times, our most vulnerable community members are not exploited in labor law. In addition, the Police Department has been investigating and certifying U visas since the program was enacted in 2000. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the U visa program, it provides a path to citizenship for individuals who are victims of serious crimes as defined by federal statute. By supporting this program, Philadelphia police are continuing the Parker administration's mission to make Philadelphia safe through keeping victims safe. and providing them, regardless of immigration status, with a means to testify in criminal matters without fear of immigration enforcement. Our Office of Immigrant Affairs meets the community where they are every day. Now, since joining the team just a few months ago, I've personally met with dozens and dozens of community leaders from across our diaspora and international and global communities. From OIA stewardship of the Philadelphia Welcoming Network, to our mayor's commissions, to our dozens of community partnerships, we are face-to-face and virtually at an average of 8 to 10 community engagements per week or more for a small but mighty team. We just hosted our first quarterly convening since I've been in my role and had representatives from more than 70 different community partners joining us to share best practices and lessons learned, primarily in support of our most vulnerable community members right now. I'm proud to note that in FY25 and 26, these have been among the most busy years for Language Access Philadelphia, which also marks its 10th anniversary of ensuring that city services are accessible to all Philadelphians through meaningful and high-quality language translation and interpretation. Just this past weekend, the Office of Immigrant Affairs supported language access planning and execution and service delivery for a large-scale World Cup and 2026-related emergency management exercise, all while our Office of Emergency Management and our public safety partners led a real-world response as well. This exercise was not canceled. It continued to happen, and we had several interpreters on site to ensure that meaningful language access is available to all Philadelphians, regardless of English language proficiency at home. I'm incredibly proud to be part of this city enterprise that prioritizes language access in every possible way we can, where our very bid to be a FIFA host city was in no small part bolstered by our robust language access programs and our human rights protections around public safety for our most vulnerable communities. I must also mention our strong emphasis on human rights and public protections and our city's recognition of the critical contributions of our truly global community. And on that note, I'm proud of my colleagues in Municipal ID who have issued more than 15,000 PHL IDs so far, providing cardholders access to our schools, government buildings, continuing our commitment to a government you can see, touch, and feel regardless of the pathways by which Philadelphians come to be Philadelphians. Now, with regards to the legislation being considered today, I want to thank Council Members Landau and Brooks and their hardworking staff for meeting with us numerous times about these bills. We met with each office before the bills were introduced, several times after the introductions. The conversations were always respectful, thoughtful, and productive. There are 7 bills being considered today. And I'll start with Bill number 260058, introduced by Councilmember Landau, which updates the Fair Practices Ordinance to create a new protected class based on immigration or citizenship status. The Parker administration wholeheartedly supports the bill, and the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations, PCHR, stands ready to enforce this legislation. The remaining six bills contain legally problematic language that has been outlined in a confidential and privileged analysis by the law department. Notwithstanding the legal issues, the rest of my testimony will speak to proactive actions the Parker administration has taken that speaks to the intent of the remaining bills. Bill number 260056, introduced by Councilmember Landau, prohibits city employees, contractors, and subcontractors from requesting information about a person's citizenship or immigration status. And Bill number 260057, introduced by Councilmember Landau, requires the city and its contractors and subcontractors to treat information that includes a person's citizenship or immigration status as confidential, and prohibits the city and its contractors from sharing such information for the purpose of immigration enforcement. Bill number 260059, introduced by Councilmember Brooks, prohibits the city and its subcontractors and contractors from entering into cooperative agreements with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Many of you may be aware of these agreements, which are called 287G agreements. As the administration has said publicly many times, all city employees are operating under Executive Orders 8-09 and 5-16, which, when read together, ensure that all persons within Philadelphia can access city services regardless of immigration status. They prohibit the collection and disclosure of immigration status unless legally necessary. They prohibit police from inquiring about immigration status unless relevant to the investigation of a crime, and make it clear. They make it clear that the city does not honor detainers. Rather, a judicial warrant is required to hold a person otherwise in custody. It is worth noting that the substance of the executive order prohibits the execution of a 287G agreement. To reiterate again, Mayor Parker intends to keep these executive orders on the books and continues to follow all the provisions in the executive orders. Furthermore, the Law Department has drafted a memo entitled Guidance on Interacting with External Government Officials on City Property that will be distributed imminently. We also plan to begin virtual training sessions for these employees to answer any further questions that may not be answered in the memo. Additionally, the Parker administration stands ready to put out a memo entitled Parameters of City Executive Orders number 08-09 and 0516 on immigration that explains how two executive orders work together. Finally, the Law Department is working with procurement to add language to our city contracts to more explicitly protect personal information, and by that change, the immigration status of individuals. We plan on implementing these changes as quickly as possible. Bill number 260061, introduced by Councilmember Brooks, prohibits the use of city-owned property for immigration enforcement. Bill number 260062, also introduced by Councilmember Brooks, prohibits city employees from consenting to the use of certain publicly owned spaces for certain immigration enforcement activity and enforcement actions that violate the First Amendment. Both of these bills also have signage requirements, which require that the city puts up signs making it clear what is not allowed on these properties with respect to immigration enforcement. I should note that Bill 260062 refers to non-city properties such as schools and courts. As you all know, we do not have the jurisdiction over these separate governmental agencies. While the control of city property remains the purview of the Department of Public Property, which in turn will follow the guidance of the Law Department, the Parker administration is evaluating the feasibility of installing signs at certain city-owned properties. These properties include spaces such as the Quadplex, recreation centers, libraries, health centers, and parking lots of certain sizes. The final bill, Bill number 260060, introduced by Councilmember Brooks, prohibits all law enforcement officers from concealing their identity and from using undercover vehicles under certain circumstances. Many people are referring to this as the face mask ban bill, but the bill goes further than that and also prohibits unmarked vehicles and requires officers to visibly display their badge and other official identifying information with certain exceptions. Notably, this bill applies to all officers at the local, state, and federal levels, and similar bills are in litigation in other states. Related to this bill, on April 2nd, the police department shared a policy memo with all departmental employees on the internet entitled PPD Interactions with ICE Agent and ICE Operations. This policy memo, which formally confirms the practice that the police department has been engaging in and establishes clear operational guidance for PPD personnel when ICE agents are present or conducting operations within the Philadelphia Police Department's jurisdiction. In closing, I want to reiterate that we understand and appreciate the intent behind this legislation. The Parker administration has taken and plans to continue to undertake several executive actions that align with these bills. I also want to again thank Councilmembers Landau, Councilmember Brooks, for engaging with us on these bills. We appreciate that they sent us the amendments on Friday. I should note that we are still reviewing the amendments, so if there are questions specifically about the amendments, we may have to get back to you with our response. I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony today. Myself and my colleagues are happy to answer questions you may have at this time.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. We want to take a moment to answer a couple questions of the administration. Before I turn over to my colleagues, I just have one question. Mr. Ellenson, can you give me an idea of, because your office is the one-stop advocacy agency for all things for the immigrant community, correct? So do you have a plan, or what is the protocol currently if ICE were to request data from your office or any other city agency? And for example, if you receive a request for a list of all members of the public who contacted your office in the last year, how would you respond?
Thank you, Council President. Renee Garcia, City Solicitor. I'll take that question because all requests for that data information would go through my office. So, and let me say that we have not received any requests like that to Charlie's office, but absolutely that is something pursuant to the executive orders we would ensure. Of course, we have to comply with right to know. We do not collect immigrant information, and we do not disclose immigrant information without the consent. So all of that analysis would go pursuant to the right to know, but with the overlay of our executive order, which prohibits the disclosure of immigration status.
Mr. Ellison, also in terms of your office, have you had any training or giving any training to other city agencies as to what to do in the event that when you host a immigrant-related community event and ICE agents show up, how would your office respond?
Yeah, so Council President, our office collaborates very closely with all city agencies, both through our Language Access Philadelphia program, as well as being the in-house consultants for our offices. And our
So what would that protocol be?
Our number one mechanism is compliance with these executive orders.
Could you clarify what that executive order is, just for the public and those who are listening?
Yeah, absolutely. I will go through each executive order in turn. The first is number 0809, Policy Concerning Access of Immigrants to City Services. It's 09 because it is from 2009. That's the Nutter administration. So that makes all city services available to all residents regardless of immigration status, guarantees access to public safety, health, mental health, child protection, recreation, and library services, amongst others, mandates entry to all city facilities regardless of immigration status. Second, it prohibits inquiries into immigration status by city employees unless required by law. Third, prohibits bias and policing based on immigration status. I'll break that down further. Law enforcement stops may not be solely based on perceived immigration status, ethnicity, or national origin. No questions related to immigration status unless the status is relevant to the crime the officer is investigating or the identification of criminal suspect. And third, may not inquire about immigration status of a crime victim, witness, or anyone seeking police assistance. The executive order also prohibits the disclosure of immigration information unless required by law or for criminal enforcement or if consent is obtained by the individual. That's the first executive order. The second is 0516 from 2016. This was the Kenney administration policy regarding U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency detainer requests. This is what we call the detainer executive order. No person in custody or who otherwise would be released from custody shall be detained pursuant to civil or administrative immigration detainer. Release date is not provided to immigration authorities, requires a judicial warrant for the release of to immigration law enforcement. So those are the two executive orders that have been placed and are still in place today.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ellison, this last question. You talked about immigration lawyers are servicing individuals who come to your office. What are the actual topics that they are servicing the individuals on? And then also, have you participated, your office, with any ICE trainings that members of City Council are doing all throughout the city of Philadelphia, or within your own right, just to let folks that do come to your office that feel a sense of fear, intimidation, and confusion because of their current environment on how they should navigate in terms of what their rights are?
Yeah, Council President, that's a great question. So our office has walk-in traffic almost every day. Several community members who see us either as a first stop resource hub for matters on all things immigration, including advice or non-legal advice on how to seek legal counsel. I am very proud that in Philadelphia, we probably have some of the strongest network of immigration attorneys in the country. I was just at the annual convening of our Immigration Attorneys Association of America in Philly 2 weeks ago. Had the honor of speaking there, but also the honor of giving feedback from that network of immigration attorneys who are seeing the broad scope of complexities in this current environment. So our office is able to look at some of those trends, and then provide that information back out to the community, as well as point community members in the right direction for that legal advice.
And have you partnered with any ICE Out workshops going on all throughout the city of Philadelphia?
The ICE Out in itself has a great website. We've been able to send several community partners to that website to request those trainings. Have myself and members of our staff just sat in on those trainings to understand what's happening? Absolutely. Have we been directly giving those trainings? I think there are already great attorneys and legal experts who are the best source of that information.
So if a member of city council was hosting an ICE Out training in the district and requested your office to come out and be a partner, you would have no objection to that, correct?
I've actually offered that to Northern Liberties Neighbors Association, Point Breeze CDC, and a
That's
few
what I
other
was-
community
that's what I was
organizations just to
getting
come
at,
out
yes.
to give that information from our perspective of the services that our
That's
office
what I
provides.
wanted to get
That
at.
is always on the table for our office for any community organization to request us to come to any community event, sir.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Thank you very much. Excuse me, sir. The chair recognizes Councilmember Dr. Nina Med.
Thank you, Council President. Good morning, council members. Good morning, all our guests in our chamber. I want to begin by thanking Minority Leader Kendra Brooks and Councilmember Rue Landau for their leadership in introducing this suite of legislation. I am the only immigrant serving on council currently, and when we have looked back in the last few decades, I've been the only one serving. And this, I want to start by saying that this comprehensive package of bills will make Philadelphians safe, all Philadelphians, immigrants, regardless of their status, and immigrants who are native born. Because when you have this level of fear operating in our communities, it impacts everybody. So we need to make sure we enshrine these laws. I also wanted to make a comment about the fact that not everybody can be here. There are people, and I thank everybody who's here in representing those who cannot, because there are people who cannot come into this chamber. They are fearful. As a naturalized citizen, I am fearful. I have to carry my passport card. My children have been told what to do if they were to be stopped. I look a way that is not welcomed. I come from what is called a shithole country, right? So I understand what you're doing. For me to actually say these words can be precarious. So I thank my council members for saying them on my behalf, on the behalf of so many who cannot be here, and I thank all of you for doing that. I wanted to also say that Philadelphia has always been giving refuge to those who need it. This is not new. You know, when we go back to the time of abolition, the Underground Railroad, all of those things, we are right now in a space that is a continuum of what Philadelphia stands for. That's why I live here. I could have chosen to live in any city in this country. I chose to come to Philadelphia, and I am very emboldened to say that I believe these bills will pass out. We will do right by all the work that has been done. I'm sure there'll be issues we have to deal with in terms of actual execution. And my question actually comes to about execution and about resources to be able to do the execution. And this is particularly about the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations, who have to really enforce and follow up on the legislation. And I wanted to know, are they properly resourced to be able to do this work? Budget hearings are coming up, and we need to be mindful of what we are asking them to do. And are you, the Office of Immigrant Affairs, Charlie, and everybody well-resourced? Because passing laws are just passing laws. Implementation is what you all do. And we want to be supportive of you, how you do that, and work with you to understand that process. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
I'll talk about PCHR, and then Charlie can talk about his office in particular. PCHR is making a concerted effort, and there is tremendous investment going into PCHR. I know that there's been a number of changes, thank you, various council members over time to strengthen the protections of our fair practices ordinance. In particular, some of the health-related changes that have come through. I will say for this change in particular, if there had been a complaint brought in this nature, it would have been handled anyway under ethnicity or nationality or one of the other exceptions. So I do believe they are well equipped, but there is a very concerted effort to beef them up across the board because of the number of complaints coming in. So that is within the budget discussions that are going on. And then I'll have Charlie talk about his office, the staffing his office in particular.
Yeah, Councilmember, that's a great question as well. And fortunately, I'll be back here on Monday as part of the Managing Director's office budget update. Is our office, ready to work with the law department and receive their guidance to implement any legislation that becomes law? We are absolutely ready. I have an incredible team under me, and if there were significant changes to the way our office was structured in the implementation, we would certainly work that within our budget and work with you to get the right answer.
Council President, I have one follow-up statement, really. The timing of things become very important when people contact your offices, because if you take too long to respond to people, they might get deported, right? And so in that spirit, I actually, and just for the public here, I want to let you know that I recently introduced a complementary ordinance amending Title 21 of the Philadelphia Code to add a chapter entitled U Visa and T Visa Certification. This ordinance establishes a standardized process for U and T visa certifications, including timely responses to requests, confidentiality of requests, guidelines for the granting or denial of the request, as well as other relevant procedures. My goal for introducing this ordinance, alongside what was in this package, is to make sure that all immigrants are protected from ICE, including some of the most vulnerable, those subjected to human trafficking and victims of crime. So I just wanted to tell you that's coming along as well. And with this whole suite, we will be really giving good protection. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Minority Leader Kendra Brooks.
Thank you. My first question. Since Trump took office, there's been a lot of fear and confusion and disinformation in Philadelphia. More than ever, people are asking for reliable information from our city government about what's happening in Philly. What are our rights, and what are we doing to protect and support them? In the first Trump administration, the Office of Immigrant Affairs had many pages of information like this and had a practice of regular multilingual communications as ICE and the federal government took new action. After Trump took office the second time, much of that helpful information from the Office of Immigrant Affairs website was taken down. Why was this information removed, and what message do you think it sends to Philadelphians who are looking for information and answers in these scary times?
Councilmember, I'll have to get back to you on what specific information was removed. We still have a wealth of information available on our website in several different languages. I will get back to you on what specifically did come down, but we still have a great website full of resources. And I can also add that we are regularly out there in the community conducting multilingual outreach and multilingual information. I'm not an attorney, but I'm able to leverage some of that federal perspective about what's happening at USCIS right now, what's happening with our other community organizations. We're able to also regularly convene the trusted messengers from across our communities to make sure that information isn't just coming from the city of Philadelphia alone.
Okay, I would really like to see that information, because we know there's a lot of fear in communities and people aren't coming to City Hall to search for information. Online is a safer space for a lot of our communities. So I would really like to know what was taken down, and is there a plan to restore it, or is there an alternate way that people can get that information without coming in the City
Understood,
Hall?
Councilmember.
My next question, there's a gap between putting something in a policy and being enacted. Council President said it clearly earlier. Clear communication and regular training to busy city workers and officers are essential to make policies real practice. We have heard from many workers and unions that employees and officers want to do the right thing and not cooperate with ICE, but they are confused about what they're required to do. So right now I'm looking for some timelines for information and rollout. So under the 2009 executive order, city workers are limited in asking for disclosing immigrant status. Have city workers received specific training about this order, and what do these trainings look like, and how often are they given? My next question, there's a new policy that was announced today for building managers about what to do if ICE comes to a city property. How would the workers be trained on this particular policy as well? And one other question, how will officers be trained about the police memo that was announced today around this specific legislation? Absolutely not.
Sounds like you have some fans in the audience. I'll take the building memo first. The building memo will be distributed. We're trying to figure out all the recipients because we also have private security, we have Scotland Yard, et cetera, and then trainings will be done by my office. But I have been speaking to different departments and managers throughout the last year. This is really just a codification of the policy already. And just so you know what the policy says, it is essentially, like many other, the school district has a policy and it follows that format with, if any federal or state law enforcement agency shows up and asks to get into a non-public space, the person at the desk or whoever the manager on site will ask them to sit down, will take any paperwork, will call a number that comes to the law department. And I think there are 10 of us on this line, so it rings all of our phones, it goes in succession. They will be taking screenshots or however I can see the paperwork, and we will triage from there. So everything will come into my office, and it is my executive team that will triage. So again, we're trying to figure out the best way to distribute that to both our city partners and our private security and any other stakeholders that will be required, and then trainings will come from my office. But again, I've been having that conversation for a year.
Yeah, thank you so much, because we have had extensive conversations with the multiple unions that will be affected about that, and they want to make sure that their membership is very clear on how they're supposed to follow these guidelines. And like when a policy is implemented, if you don't have the proper training or no one's going to tell you like who to go to, who is the supervisor I'm to report to, where do I get this number from, where's this number going, things get lost in the midst and people end up in danger. So I would really like to kind of see a timeline when that's going to happen once this bill is passed, because implementation is going to be very important, especially since we're anticipating, you know, more calls, to your own point.
Right, and we will not be waiting till the bill passes to get this out. We're getting this out imminently, and we'll start the trainings. But we'll give you the timeline, and then once I do my roadshow, if there are other folks who come to any of you and say they haven't been trained, please just send them to me, and I'll make that happen. As to the first policy you asked about, which is the executive orders, I have also been in a roadshow this year to make sure that each department knows what information they can collect. And I will say I won't give a number, but almost everywhere there isn't even a field to put immigration information on there, right? It is very, very limited, particularly in the issue of like HUD housing is where we do have to collect immigration, but there isn't even like in our health, our electronic medical records, there isn't even a field there. But because there's been, you know, so much scrutiny on this and we've been going through federal grants, I have been having that conversation for 13 months now. I have met with every single department. So those conversations are ongoing, but we have locked down our systems so that there's not even a place to put that information.
Okay, once again, I just want to make sure that we get a timeline of when people know, you know, when our staff, city staff, and people that will be in charge of implementation know that this is happening. So that's one thing that we request.
Yeah, understood. And then I'll call up Commissioner Healy to speak about the police memo.
Good morning, Fran Healy, Deputy Commissioner, Chief of Staff. Yes, I'm sorry, what was it? Could you just clarify the question? I couldn't hear it 100%.
Sure, I will. How will officers be trained about the police memo that was announced today?
Yes, we've had discussions over the last several months as to documenting our existing protocols and procedures in the police department. They aren't technically on paper. So what we did was really, when it came to ICE, we saw a need to make sure that everything that our officers are expected to do is on paper. So the issue is if they come across an issue where ICE agents are taking some type of action, what is their expectation? We put it out there. It was consistent, but we thought it was important to put it on paper. We've been talking about this for about the last 3 or 4 months, and it's been in a draft form, and we just finalized it last week.
Where exactly in the police policy will it be found?
It should be on our intranet. Yeah, what it is we have 2 different types of policies. We have a directive, and then we have what's called a police commissioner's memorandum, which is somewhat like a quasi-directive. It allows us the opportunity to actually, if we need to make changes, tweaks, or changes to it, we can make that before we make it into a final directive. But it's nonetheless policy as it stands.
So this is going to be a memo, not a directive, just to be clear.
It's called a PC memo. That's a document we use in the police department, but it's policy.
Council President, my time is up, but I do have more questions. Okay, thank you. So my next question, since you're here, so you don't have to leave. Chicago, among other cities, have issued directives about immigrant enforcement in 2025 that clearly outlined that officers what they should and should not do in regards to immigration enforcement. Philadelphia has not issued any police directives on immigration since Trump took office for the 2nd time. Chicago's directive states that officers will not, while on duty, expend time responding to any immigration agency's inquiry or communicating with any immigration agency regarding a person's custody status, release date, or contact information. So the internal memo released last week says that the Philadelphia police officers will not identify individuals or share non-public information for immigration enforcement. Does the Philadelphia Police Department consider custody status, release date, or contact information non-public? And what type of information will PPD share with ICE?
As of right now, we're sharing no information with ICE.
Thank you for that. Wait, I have another question. Wait. Chicago's 2025 police directive also states that police will not set up a traffic perimeter to assist a civil immigration's enforcement operation. And we heard a case of Philadelphia police doing just that. And recent police memo states that the PPD will establish perimeters, buffers, or physical barriers within between ICE agents and the public. Why is Philadelphia taking the opposite approach to Chicago in this matter?
I'll be very honest, I'm not clear what you say by perimeters.
Traffic perimeters, I think it means to assist in a civil immigration enforcement operation. So in the event something is happening,
Right.
What is the police department's response in that?
That's in the protocol. We don't get involved in any ICE actions. The only time basically we're going to get involved if there's an ICE agent in a crisis. There's either calls for an assist officer or something along those lines, as we would for any other federal, state, or other local officer. We do not get involved in civil ICE enforcement.
So when you say, so if, I think I read somewhere that if it's an emergency situation and an ICE agent called and said they're in an emergency situation, you come on scene, what is identified as an emergency situation from ICE, not from the police department? Because if they call and said it's an emergency situation and they're an ICE agent, what do we consider emergency when we get there on scene?
Right.
And how does that work into your participation in whatever's happening at that time?
Yeah, our position on this is that the officers are being assaulted in some way, shape, or form. So it's a physical assault.
So if you come on the scene and no one's being assaulted and it's just a typical ICE arrest, how do you respond from that? Or how do you determine what's happening from there? Especially if they're masked, unidentified and without uniform.
Right. That, what we're trying to do is make sure we balance the public safety interests of it. The issue is, and that's the reason for the protocol, to make sure our responding officers don't engage, don't take sides. Our bottom line is public safety, and oftentimes you'll see our officers as the line between ICE and protesters. The issue is our job's not to take a side, okay? And the issue is the only time we would get involved if there's actually physical violence or somebody's actually in imminent harm.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, sir. I just have a question. What is our protocol in terms of working with the school district of Philadelphia and making sure that the district is prepared in the event that ICE shows up at a school and begin targeting some of our students? What's the protocol?
Yeah.
And I'm only asking, we've seen this in the county with some students, and it was chaos, and we want to be proactive, and so.
Yep, I'll answer to the extent that I have been involved, and then Commissioner Healy can talk on the police side. In January of 2025, we started having meetings with the school district immediately, not just the school district, the charters, the archdiocese, immediately. And very frequent, so that everybody was on the same page. As you all know, rumors fly very quickly. So especially in the early days, there were rumors about ICE in particular schools, this and that. So early and very often communication, and that continues today. So that we have a constant line. If something is happening or is perceived to be happening, that relationship is managed through Vanessa Garrett-Harley, GW Mayor Vanessa Garrett-Harley, but I have conversations with them as well. So we're aware of their policy on buildings, which is the same as ours, that judicial warrants are required. From the police perspective, I'll turn it over to the commissioner if there is an incident and how they would respond to that.
Our response is very consistent. The issue is we're there to protect the immigrants. Okay, our civil enforcement is not our purview. So when these issues come up, if we know they're coming up, we may actually deploy a civil affairs unit to quell any issues that may happen with the community. But we work hand in hand with the school district to make sure that the children are safe in their school.
Okay, thank you very much. Point of information, Councilman Curtis Jones Jr., Chair of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. President. How many cases have there been where ICE removed students from public school systems?
I don't know of a single one.
Pardon me?
I do not know of a single case.
So, all right. So you related to the school district based on...
Member Jones, could you speak in the microphone, please?
So do I understand that you dealt with the school district in case of instances like this? Can we check back with the school district to make sure that there have not been any cases, and if there were, where were they?
Okay. I'm happy to check in, but I'm not aware of any incidents. I was saying if in the event there were some things going on, we would deploy accordingly.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Member Jones. Councilman Rue Landau, then Councilman Jamie Gauthier, and Councilmember Jim Harity.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you to the...
Could you speak into the microphone,
Sure.
please?
Contact, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to the administration for being here. Appreciate you so much, and appreciate hearing that we're going to be taking proactive steps to train employees. That's extremely important. Excuse me, I'm sorry, my allergies, I got to do this. Caught me with a cough drop in, sorry. I wanted to follow up a little bit on data to start. As you said in your testimony, all city employees are operating under the executive orders 809 and 516, which when read together ensure that all persons within Philadelphia can access city services regardless of immigration status. Prohibit the collection and disclosure of immigration status, unless legally necessary, and prohibit police from inquiring about immigration status unless relevant to the investigation of a crime. What these executive orders do not cover are the sharing of other kinds of data beyond immigration status. I want to first ask a couple of policy and protocol questions, and then I want to ask give you a couple of scenarios that would present a risk or fear for immigrants here in Philadelphia. So first, is immigration status treated as confidential information under the city's policy?
It is confidential information, yes.
If a member of the public asked for information under a right-to-know request and immigration status was included, would it be redacted or kept exempt from the right-to-know results?
It would be redacted. Again, it's in very few places that we have that information, but yes, it would not be provided.
Can you shed some light on what kinds of data city agencies do collect that could indirectly reveal immigration status, especially when combined with places such as place of birth, language preference, or type of ID used? So has DHS or ICE ever asked Philadelphia for language access information to find out what programs requested interpretation services? Has DHS or ICE ever asked for 311 data? Have they ever asked for medical records from the city's healthcare providers? They asked for water records or property tax records, including personally identifying information. Do you have any knowledge of DHS or ICE using AI tools such as skip tracing to easily parse publicly available open data to find immigrants? And if a federal agency like ICE were to request bulk or individual level data from a city agency today, can you walk us through step by step what would happen and where exactly that request would be denied?
Compound question. All of the scenarios where you asked, has this happened? Not in the 5 years that I've been here. So no, we are not getting a request like that. To the to the question about AI tools, I don't have any knowledge that they're using AI, whether they are or not using AI tools to go into public data. I don't know that. If we were to receive an ICE subpoena for information today, that would go to my office. We would review the request. We would see if there's a judicial signature on it, right? Depends on how the request comes in. We would bump that up against the executive order. There would be a thorough review, obviously a briefing with the mayor, but our procedure, it is something that only can be done by my department and would not be responded to without very severe legal scrutiny on it.
Thank you. It's probably a question for to Fran Healy, but does ICE have any access to our PARS criminal system?
Are any assets where?
To PARS.
No, they were excluded from PARS in 2018.
Just a point of information, could you just state for the record what is
PARS
PARS, so everyone
PARS
else
is the
can know?
preliminary arraignment system. Anybody who's arrested has actually put into that system, so they're scheduling for the court, who's the arresting officers and the story, et cetera. Yeah, ICE was iced out of that quite a few years ago.
I appreciated the icing out of ICE from the PARS system. I'm concerned because I heard again last week of another situation in which ICE picked up a witness who was coming to support a case at the Criminal Justice Center, and it's leading towards people thinking there's either employees with a leak somewhere, or that there is a way they have access, that I just wanted to clear up on the record that you're saying ICE does not have access to PARS.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Council President, I have some public property questions too. Can I ask them? Thank you. I wanted to kind of follow up on what Minority Leader Brooks was asking. There's been scenarios in which ICE has created, in which the city of Philadelphia has created a perimeter with bike barriers. And I am curious where you consider collaboration to start and end, whether or not our using our city property, such as our bike barriers, the metal barriers that we use to secure a perimeter, are we actively offering that as a an element for ICE? Are we setting them up for them? Are we transporting it for them? Are they paying for this service? And then my second question is, if you saw ICE, you start to finish, actively crossing the boundaries and the lines of what they should do, and let's just say hypothetically, really beating up a protester or really doing some of the horrific things we saw in Minneapolis, and I'm saying you saw it from start to finish and you knew it was wrong, would you, in a sense, would the police department, in a sense of helping and keeping public safety, go in and try to pull the ICE officer off, try to really stop this action from happening? And I ask this for a question I never thought to ask before too. Would you do it if you saw an off-duty police officer doing something that was so severely beyond the guidelines of what they were supposed to do? How would you intervene?
Well, to answer your first question, we have no relationship with ICE as to sharing barriers or anything. Our civil affairs unit may call barriers, but they think that's necessary. But ICE has nothing to do with that. That's completely our call to maintain the peace. To your second question, we've addressed that in my policy. Not my policy, in our policy. The issue is if someone is going clearly above and beyond the line, okay, we have a duty to protect all people. Okay, and that includes victims and anybody else being targeted. So that's addressed in our policy as well. And if I saw an off-duty officer going above and beyond, we would intervene as well. We have a specific policy on intervening before things get bad. It was a policy implemented several years ago, but everybody in our department has a duty to intervene, okay, not just to let things happen. You need to step up. So we have an affirmative duty in the department for about the last 6 years now. Could step in.
Thank you so much. I have to say, we've met with you before. I've met with you before. I have never heard that loud and clear like I have today. I appreciate that, and I think everybody here today appreciates the fact that the police are saying they will intervene.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Councilman Jamie Gauthier, then Councilman Jim Harity, and then Majority Deputy Whip Councilman Cindy Bass.
Thank you, Council President. Good morning to all of you. I want to start by thanking and commending my colleagues, Minority Leader Kendra Brooks and Councilmember Rue Landau for bringing this legislation to the table. For me, this is highly personal. I'm not an immigrant like our colleague Nina Ahmad. However, I'm second generation. My mother immigrated to my district to Southwest Philadelphia from St. Vincent and the Grenadines when she was a teenager, along with her whole family. And I have the honor and the pleasure of representing many, many immigrants, particularly from parts of Africa and the Caribbean and Asia. And so this is personal to me, but also a huge part of my role as a council member. And I have to be honest, I've been very disappointed to not see the administration take a more active role in supporting and affirming support for such a critical part of our population. But I am proud to be a part of a council that is stepping in the gap and stepping into what has essentially been a vacuum in our city around protecting our immigrant population. Even if you do not look at this from an emotional or a political or an ideological standpoint, it's important for us to support and protect our immigrant population because they mean so much to the health of Philadelphia. It is in fact true that the only reason Philadelphia has grown as a city in the last 2 decades is because of immigration. We would have... It is true that without that as a factor, we would have experienced declining population. And beyond that, immigrants contribute so much to the culture of Philadelphia, the economic health of Philadelphia, research and innovation. This city played a critical role in developing the COVID vaccine because of innovations that came right out of University City. And one of the prime people in that effort was an immigrant, right? And so, to me, I think it's such a strategic error to not let such a critical part of our population know that we are there for them, we appreciate their contributions, and we're going to support and protect them. But my two questions. One, we've gone back and forth over this training piece multiple times during this hearing, and I kind of want to hear more of an explicit answer. And so, Deputy Commissioner Healy, you talked a number of times about sort of memos, policy memos that you all are distributing to police. I think it's good to have written policies. However, they don't mean as much if they are not, if the officers are not trained on those policies. Can you first lay out what that training has been or what it will be, very specifically beyond talking about you guys sending out the memo? And then secondly, I want to know why the city, well, let me step back. I think there is a difference between poking the bear being Trump, and being pro-immigrant, right? You do not have to poke the bear to show up and show support for immigrant communities. And One very basic thing that we could have been doing since the start of the Trump administration is doing Know Your Rights trainings across Philadelphia. Why has the administration not taken the very basic step of carrying out Know Your Rights trainings throughout the city, and in particular in our immigrant neighborhoods? I'd really like to hear answers to both of those questions.
To your question as to training, we have a new executive director that does our training at the Police Academy, Dr. Pamela Murray. Her expertise is in developing training curriculum and the modalities in which to train them. This is being presented to her as to how best to do this, because it's not really new material, but the question is how do we make sure that everybody understands it? So we are in the process of that as well. Coming up with a finalized policy and then doing the follow-up with the training is actually a part of the plan.
Can you talk specifically about your timeline and how we get all of our officers trained on this issue? This is important enough not to be vague about.
Well, the first thing is it was put out, so that's actually read. Everyone has it, but we are within the next several weeks. We should have everything completed. Either, like I said, I'm not going to speak for the doctors that had the best modality, but there could be a combination. Training bulletin could be a short video. I'll leave that to her expertise, but that is part of the overall plan to make sure that they do understand the instructions that they've been given.
Are you saying within the next couple of weeks the trainings will be completed, or in the next couple of weeks you will know what that training will look like?
I think both. Honestly, I think within the next week or so, we'll know exactly this is not complicated. The issue is what do you think we should do best? Because this is material the officer's already aware of, so it's not new material. So the level of training I'll leave up to the expertise, but I don't see this being a long process.
I see. Will it be a continual process?
Well, we'll do this first, and then if there's any changes or modifications to the existing program, like I said, I put it into a police commissioner's memorandum format, so in the event there's any tweaks or changes or recommendations that come down, we'll modify accordingly. Our goal is to make the best policy, not just the quickest policy. So if anything comes up and we should do it better, we'll tweak it and change it, and then accordingly we will follow up with the necessary training.
Thank you. My second question, why has the administration declined to take the very basic step of doing Know Your Rights trainings across the city, and do you have plans to change that?
I'll jump in and then Charlie can follow up with that. But I just want to say that We hear you. My story is also one of immigration, and it is personal to us and many people in the administration as well. So we are all feeling the heaviness of the moment and doing our best to protect our people. The right to know trainings that have been taking place, Charlie said before, by immigration lawyers is the best source of information because they are trusted sources. And so we have been boosting those trainings through our social media, but those, again, remain trusted sources. And immigration attorneys, I am not an immigration attorney, are the best source for the rights. And I will bump it to Charlie to talk more about that, but about other engagement that he's been doing in the communities.
Okay, but super quickly, I think that there's a difference between who is participating or conducting the training and who is hosting the training. The city could very well host trainings and still use immigration lawyers to deliver the trainings. Why have we not done that?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Renee said and then echo what you said is the best source of information are immigration attorneys who are in the courtrooms every day. And I weighed doing this when I started my role of should our office be taking the lead and maybe partnering with community organizations to co-host. Our office has given grants, both from city funding as well as our Welcoming Fund, which is a public-private partnership, to support those community trainings. I am of the opinion that those trainings should be best out there in the community. Here's what my office has done. We've consulted on a number of trainings. I've got very recent relevant federal experience that is changing in the current landscape. We have a great network of legal service providers, so we've connected community organizations who maybe want a step further of training, because generally know your rights, what we tend to find is it's a lot of bystanders, right? It's not necessarily our most vulnerable immigrant communities who are attending that. What those communities really need is more specific legal workshops, especially for our Venezolano or Venezuelan community, many of whom recent arrivals are temporary protected status holders, right? That community may sometimes come to our office requesting a know your rights training, but when we get to the bottom of it, what that community really needs is to talk to someone in both labor law and with a nexus to immigration, to talk to some of our employers to see how employers are adjudicating employment authorization documents as well. So our office does very frequently respond to requests for know your rights training. We do not lead that training ourselves. I think it's best done by immigration attorneys who are out there in their community capacities and for the most part represent the communities in our city as trusted messengers anyway, but we do partner every day, both in terms of providing funding, in terms of providing references, and in terms of providing consultations with that relevant federal data, and just sometimes connecting to different, more grassroots organizations who may already be doing that work and can share some resources.
In closing.
Please wrap up. Go ahead.
Okay. In closing, I just want to say that I hope to see the administration follow council's lead in taking a more active role here. Trump will be out of office in a couple of years. Our immigrant population will still be here, and they're going to wonder why we did not support them. Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes Councilmember Jim Harity, then Councilmember Cindy Bass. Member Young, your light was on. Did you turn it off? Okay. And then Councilmember Jeffrey J. Young.
Thank you, Council President. As I look around the room here to my colleagues, I don't see any members that could be visually seen as Native American. Saying that to bring up that none of us were born here. We all migrated here at some time, including the
Excuse
Native
me, I make
American.
exception to the rule.
Yes, sir.
People were not.
Not everybody
we didn't come
was.
on our own.
You're right.
I just gotta say that for
Council
the record.
President, that was not my.
Just wanna say that.
You're absolutely right.
We came with a
Some
Nita,
were
the Pinta.
forced to come here.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. And we've had that conversation. You know how I feel about that as our historian. So to say my point, Council President, is that none of us here, we're here because we are from here, right? For me, my family's been here for a pretty long time. I mean, we weren't here at the founding, but we've been here since the 1800s. My grandparents came here right after the potato famine. They actually survived it. But because they were Irish Catholic, they were persecuted. So they came here seeking a better life because, you know, as it's said and is said on the Statue of Liberty, give us your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuge of your teeming shore, right? That's what we promise. We are the melting pot. So some things kind of escape me. Nobody's ever accused me of being a liberal, right? Or a progressive. I'm what's probably known as a moderate Democrat. And being labeled the regular guy on council, for me, some things I just don't get because they seem like common sense. We are the country of immigrants. Look, nobody's saying that criminals should be allowed to run around unchecked. But I live in an immigrant and minority community. I have neighbors trying to raise their family that are scared to death right now, and some of them are citizens. But the color of their skin doesn't mean that they won't be discriminated because they look like who they are looking for. So for me, the point here is moot. We are the country of immigrants. We will always be the country of immigrants. Every one of us, family, has come here with that same thought, that same desire to be free, to be unpersecuted, and to be safe. And that's what we're supposed to do. We are the protectors of the world, right? We're the ones that are supposed to come in and protect everybody, right? But yet, we are not protecting the people we have here. They're here. They're going to stay here. We need to figure it out and protect them just like we protect everybody else. Council President, I have no questions because there are no questions. As you told me, I'm going to be on the right side of history. This is not even an issue. It's not an issue. It's the right thing to do, Council President, and I want to thank you because you're the one that told me that.
Thank you, Member Harity. The chair recognizes Majority Deputy Whip Cindy Bass, and then we'll have Councilmember Jeffrey J. Young, and then brief second round questions for individuals who want to address the administration before the next panel. Deputy Whip, Majority.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good almost afternoon. How's everybody doing? So a couple of things I just wanted to follow up on. The first is I wanted to follow up on my colleague, Councilmember Harity. And part of what he was suggesting and saying was about the question from earlier about the Know Your Rights training and, you know, that we kind of like just leave it up to the other organizations that do immigration work. Was that the correct understanding? Did I get that wrong in some way, or can you, Mr. Ellison?
I personally think that the level of Know Your Rights training and complexity needed in our community now is best done by immigration attorneys.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard, and that's wrong.
But with the city's support,
Okay,
he also said that we are providing funding and partnering to make sure the wraparound services are there.
This is a time where the administration needs to go boldly and in front of these kinds of conversations. Because if someone gets it wrong, well-intentioned or not, they are disseminating very, very, very important information. And so we can't have a situation where they get it halfway right, or, like maybe they got some of it right. It's got to be all the way right, all across the board, and that's where the city needs to step in and come first and lead the way. Let us lead the way so that we can show those who are well-meaning what to do. But I think that we should be in the front of this parade. So I hope that that's something that you all will consider as we do budget conversations going forward and talk about funding.
And I just want to be clear, those leading the Know Your Rights are the experts in this area, probably many community and nonprofits that are in the room today.
Nonetheless, because they're not from the city of Philadelphia, I think that most people would feel most comfortable hearing directly from their local government in terms of exactly what is happening. So even though they may be experts in that realm, Philadelphia, we as a city cannot step back and let them step up. We have to be side by side. If the department doesn't feel comfortable leading the way.
Excuse me, Member Bass.
Yes.
Minority Leader Brooks has a point of information.
No, she could have finished her statement. I just wanted to say, you can finish and I can finish. It's to your 10 point.
Okay.
Member Bass.
I forgot my point. So, but the point is that, we should be leading the way. And if we're not in front, if you don't feel as comfortable, which sounds strange to me, but if you don't feel comfortable being in front, then at least side by side so that people know that Philadelphia city government is all in and, has a particular perspective and understanding. If we're not in front or side by side, then people think, then there may be some room for misinterpretation. So that's my concern. Councilmember Brooks had a point.
Point of information, Member Brooks, author of the bill.
Thank you so much. One of the things to Councilmember Bass's point, and just my little concern, is that we offered these ICE out trainings that we led with community members. How many people in this room attended one of the ICE out trainings in the city? These were community members. We partnered with the organization, and we added our name to it to give it city validity, but it wasn't a thing that started with us, and it should have. In a time where our community members were afraid, they needed something, and this is what we offered. And I think to Councilmember Bass's point is that it is our responsibility as the city of Philadelphia to make our community members feel safe, not pull together a training and say only experts can do it. Because at the end of the day, when ICE is in your neighborhood or in your community or in the workplace, it's going to be us. It's going to be the workers. It's going to be your co-workers. It's going to be your neighbors. It's going to stand side by side. So the notion that it has to be led by a lawyer is like, I just don't buy that. I think we need to do something, and we need to do everything that we can so our neighbors around the city feel safe. And we started as a few things that we did in the neighborhood, and now we have trainings all throughout the city. And we have to continue to build on that because people are requesting this training, not just in Philadelphia, outside of the city, in the suburbs, and other states. And we pulled it together, just us. And I think we as a city, we can't take a cop-out and say that there's nothing we can do and we need attorneys and educators that need this training. We are the ones that are going to protect us. And I think as a city, we could have done better.
Well, thank you, Member Brooks. I agree. This is not the time to be shy or to stand back or sit back. And I can't think of anything better that the Office of Immigrant Affairs could be working on. I just can't. As we're talking about budgets, if we're not working on this, what else are we working on? So I offer that as a constructive suggestion that we'll be following up on. So one other point I wanted to make, because as we were sitting here,
I like that Nice Town Coalition thing going on. Go ahead, Member Bass.
right? 8th District. So now, I don't have a history of immigration in my family. I have a history of the immigration that came that was not voluntary through slavery. And so, but whether was that, form of unwanted immigration or what we see today, we see a commonality in the brutality of ICE
Black and brown people.
and black and brown people. And so I wanted to speak specifically because, we've had a very checkered history in the city of Philadelphia with law enforcement. And I feel like we are at a point where we have really worked hard to turn that around. And I think I work very closely with DC Healy and, of course, Commissioner Bethel, all of the Philadelphia Police Department. We have great relationships. When I grew up in the city, it just wasn't so. When I grew up in the Frank Rizzo area, I remember the picture of the nightstick and a cummerbund and, the brutality against African-American men, and specifically being told to strip down, and it being photographed and in the Daily News and all of those kinds of things. We have had a real history of brutality. We've turned it around, and now here comes ICE. And particularly when it comes to, I would say, African-American communities, I'm concerned about ICE agents using law enforcement as a way to brutalize communities that have had this sort of interaction, in the past. And particularly around, hey, are you Haitian? Are you African?
Jamaican.
Because so much of what ICE is doing is based on appearance. So they don't need, it doesn't have to be that, you're speaking a different language. It's based on so much of your appearance. You look like you belong, fill in the blank. And so how are we working to ensure that this is not happening, that they're not taking us back so that we don't see that level of brutality and violence against African peoples that we've seen in the past in the city of Philadelphia? Because we've done so much work, we've moved the needle tremendously, and now here they come, which I see is very much problematic.
Thank you for the question. It's a great question.
Thank you.
The issue, you are correct. We've come leaps and bounds from where we've gone. I think the important thing is this distinguish between ICE and the police.
Yes.
Okay, we police the community. Okay, this is a federal agency, and I respect the job that it has to do. But we are here, this is our community. So we're here to make sure that the community's safe, that they feel safe. And the issue is that's why we actually put the policy in place, so you can know there's a distinction. There's not a collaboration on civil enforcement between us and ICE, period. That's the bottom line.
Say that again.
There is not a,
Say that again.
There is not a collaboration on civil enforcement. That is not what we do, and it's not what we want to do. Even under as far back as Commissioner Timoney, we made a separation that we weren't going to participate in sharing information and car stops. And so we have a long-standing history of ICE has its job, and we respect that, but we have our job to police and protect our community.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you, Member Bass.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair announces Jeffrey J. Young.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. My questions are on the similar lines of Councilmember Bass regarding just police relations in the city. And so how will residents verify whether someone claiming to be law enforcement, is actually authorized, in that situation, particularly when they just have police written on it, right? So how am I, as a Joe Schmo citizen, to be able to determine what advice, right, or I guess this is where the city trainings could come in. Like, what do I do as a citizen, right, when I just see that that's happening, it just says police, like what am I to do in those situations to verify the validity of this particular stop?
Very simply, call 911. Okay, because if you are being stopped by a federal agent, I can figure that out. If you're not being stopped by a federal agent, I can also figure that out. The issue is that's the best avenue. Okay, and also don't get confrontational. Make that call. Okay, we've come out many times when people think that it's the police or not the police. The issue is our job to make our community feel safe. And there's a lot of people out there, aside from the federal government, who can wear these things, that wear false police outfits. There are people that impersonate police officers. So if you ever feel in doubt that the person stopping you is not lawful or legitimate, call 911. And we have arrested people who have impersonated police officers. So yeah, we do that. It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, we usually make arrests out of it. And it's as a result of a 911 call.
Thank you. So how will the city distinguish between, again, the lawful compliance with a judicial warrant and the unlawful cooperation based on detainers or these informal communications of employees or whatever? Like, how will we, like, what happens in that instance? I do know we have amendments today to protect city workers, which I think is great. But what other avenues are there to ensure our residents, again, that the city is only complying with things they are judicially ordered to comply with?
Yep, okay, so two parts of that. Commissioner Healy and then Commissioner Resnick, and we have the Chief of Staff, Greg Verado, here within the prison system. Commissioner Healy will assist in looking at the subpoena to make sure that there is a judge from the Eastern District of Pennsylvania signature on that piece of paper. They send, there's detainers and administrative warrants and all that. We are looking for a judicial signature on that piece of paper, and that is the same if somebody shows up at a building or mails us something or whatever it is. We are looking for judicial signatures, and the reason why everything has to come through me, through DC Healy, is because that we are trained to look at that document and look for that judicial signature.
And you kind of alluded to my next question. Is like, you are trained, but like, how will the city ensure that the protections do not depend on the discretion of individual employees or officer, especially where we had testimony where that describes fear of the informal sharing of information. So like, what are there other folks who are trained other than at the commissioner level, right, to take a look at this stuff to see, to verify if it's valid or not?
They are under orders to send everything to me. And I've had many conversations with leadership, with directors, with people in Parks and Recreation. It's been a year of this. If you see legal papers, stop. Send them to me. That I am not putting the onus on anybody else to interpret the law, right? Okay. It all comes to me, or DC Healy.
And just for our own recollection, like, what are some of this legislation passes? I assume these ordinances will pass. What's the enforcement mechanisms as federal agents conduct this immigration activity on or near a city property that violates these ordinances?
Well, on that regard, number one, we support this legislation. The issue is when it comes to enforcement and implementation, we would actually, once this gets passed, we would actually have to consult with the law department for their recommendation on how to proceed.
And let me just put out there that I know that amendments came down Friday that were seeking to address some of the legal issues. It's been a long 5 days for us. I got to tell you, we have been down in Grace Ferry. I have been down there, the mayor, obviously her team, and the police commissioner. So we will be reviewing those. I did bleary-eyed try to review everything over the weekend. But as with all legislation that comes through after final passage, we will give our legal opinion. I can tell you some of this stuff, because it's duplicative already, is already in place and changes won't need to be made. Some of it has already been taken care of by the initiatives we have talked about today, and the rest of it we will go through our legal analysis like we do any other piece of legislation.
Thank you.
Next up, now we're going to be brief for this round before we bring up the next panel. And so, Councilmember Curtis Jones, Councilmember Rue Landau, Councilmember Brooks, and that's for the administration, correct? Okay. Member Jones?
Thank you so much, Mr. President. As a Pennsylvania Human Relations Commissioner, sitting next to the former director of the Philadelphia Human Relations Commission, I can't help but be proud of my colleagues that some of their comments and speeches are right out of, inspired by the Declaration of Independence here on the floor. So I'm really proud of you. My direct question is, when a constable from Montgomery County or Corbin County comes in to apprehend someone who may have traffic violations or something like that, or a federal officer comes into Philadelphia, do they have a responsibility to check in with local law enforcement to tell them that they are performing these duties?
The answer is no. The constables have statewide authority, and the federal government has federal authority. They don't need to check in with us on any
So
actions.
similarly, the folk from ICE don't have to
No, sir.
and don't bother to?
Correct.
Is there some legislation at the state level or the city level that would require that checking in? Because I could see how them apprehending someone could get out of hand real quick. Like,
Correct.
without you knowing that they are performing these duties, and then they come in, they kick a door in, and somebody doesn't know the identification, they have masks on. You know, people who rob drug dealers have pusheisties on. I mean, so how do you make that distinction between defending your home and complying with the law? There's a gray area that I think needs to be addressed so that the city of Philadelphia does not wind up at cross purposes either. Like if I get a call, somebody's breaking in my house, I don't know who they are. They say they're ICE, but they don't have to be ICE.
Yeah. Understood. Yep. And we are certainly constrained by federal law because immigration enforcement is their purview. I will say there are a number of lawsuits around the country challenging particularly the Fourth Amendment. And I see that ACLU is on a panel today, and that's a great question for them. We are following all that litigation because of what we are hearing in other cities where they weren't getting warrants to go into people's homes. So that is all under challenge right now.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilmember Landau.
Thank you. Two brief questions. I asked throughout 2025, working with this wonderful coalition of immigrant service providers and immigrant justice organizations, we asked the administration whether they would meet directly with PIC, the Pennsylvania Immigration Coalition, and many of its members. That request was not accepted, but I'm curious now if you can commit to meeting regularly with PIC and all of its immigrant justice organizations that they work with.
We certainly had a number of meetings, and I think Charlie should talk about the meeting that he held, I'm losing track of time, several weeks ago, which included a lot of these entities.
Yeah, we already do meet regularly. We hosted our first quarterly convening since my tenure as the executive director in this office. I wanted to do it sooner. My team was just very busy last year, as you can imagine, so I wanted to do it right when I came on board and actually got some good advice from my team that we should slow down, listen to our community more, but we are already hosting meetings. I already meet with many of the PIC Coalition members regularly out in the community, but we're definitely open to more meetings.
And are those organizations, though, that you've been meeting with, you've said you've had 8 to 10 meetings a week, are they with groups that are specifically working on deportation defense or immigration justice rather than just community groups?
Yes.
And then my last question is going to be more to get into the weeds of, so thank you for agreeing to meet with folks regularly. Let's clap that one up, guys. If it's, we'll make sure it happens. We will make sure it happens. I want to talk more about city property and public property and how we go about leasing out or sharing our public spaces. If we, for example, if there's a parking lot associated with a library, for example, what is the process by which an outside entity would say, we would like to park our cars here, we would like to, I don't know, fill up our tear gas canisters here, we would like to, establish our riot gear here. Do we actually enter into formal leases with people, informal leases, and how does the leader on the ground make the decision as to what to do with public space?
Okay. Great question. In that circumstance, the request usually arises with the library. For example, it would go to public property in my office that completes leases. So leases are not complete. They should not be completed. They are not completed unless they come through my office. I can tell you we don't have any leases with ICE. They're not using our property. There's nothing like that at all. But there is not, if they're an intergovernmental agency, maybe we have an MOU like with the parking authority or whatever it is. But there's not, it is not happening that there are leases that we do not know about. It's got to come through the law department.
Then what would the consequences be for an informal agreement of, we just want to park our cars here for a couple of days?
I mean, no one would have the authority to make that informal agreement, right? That is not something that is an authority bestowed upon public property to allow federal officials to be using without running that up.
Last question, what if it's after hours, Saturday, Sunday afternoon, when a library is closed, and you find ICE vehicles parked there? What do you do then?
I talked to Fran, but it would be, sorry, Commissioner Healy, that would be a trespass if there was a problem there, and the police would process that as they would any other trespass if someone was parking there.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you so much. So I want to talk about the National Crime Information Center, or NCIC database. This is a database controlled by the federal government, and it has become a major way that city governments cooperate with ICE. When the Philadelphia police investigate or detain someone, they are trained to look up a person's name in the NCIC database to see if there is a hit or a flag for that person from a federal agency. ICE has now added more than 700,000 administration warrants to the NCIC system that shows up as a hit when an officer puts any of those names in the database. ICE likes to use administration warrants because they look like real warrants, but they are signed by someone like an ICE agent and are not signed by a federal judge, so they have no legal authority. There's absolutely no legal requirement for the Philadelphia police to honor or respond to an administrative warrant. However, we've heard that a Philadelphia police officer sees an ICE hit on a person in the NCIC database, regardless if it's an administration warrant or a real judicial warrant, and the officer will call ICE on that person. Other cities and states have issued clear policies around administrative warrants and ICE hits in the NCIC database. For example, the Maryland State Police issued operational guidelines that list what officers should do if they see an ICE hit in the NCIC. First, officers are instructed to review the hit to determine if it's based on an administrative warrant or a judicial warrant. And if it is based on the administrative warrants, are instructed to take no action based on the hit or are forbidden from contacting ICE about it. The police memo that was issued last week does not list any change in policy regarding ICE hits in the NCIC database and gives officers no instructions on administrative warrants in the database. Why not? And the next question is the Philadelphia police going to adopt a clear policy like Maryland and Chicago or other cities? And will it be written or posted as other cities do?
Well, thank you for the question, and quite frankly, thank you for the policy that you sent us from Maryland. I've shared that with my Advanced Training Bureau and also with the Pennsylvania Municipal Police Officers Education and Training Bureau as well, because the document you sent me came from a state agency, not a local agency. To answer your question, yes, I'm looking to see how we can incorporate that information, because when you look at the ICE hits when it comes over the screen, it's very complicated. It's like a computer printout, and you need to know how to figure it out. So the issue is there's some very, very, very good information in that. And so we're looking to see how we can adopt and incorporate that. The reason it wasn't in my policy is because I got it after the policy was finalized, but therein lies the reason why it's a police commissioner's memorandum. So I can tweak it, change it, but there's some very good information in there. And like I said, I've talked with my the state counterpart. They don't have anything similar, but they were very interested in it as well. So I thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know as our state colleagues are working on similar legislation, I don't know where it's going to go there, but right now we're here for Protecting Philadelphia. So any additional information, we'll work really hard to make sure as we're working with other state localities to give best practices, we're open to do that. My final was, in general, in what situation does a police officer notify ICE or federal authorities about an individual that they have detained? And when do they not? And where is this written down or posted? Other cities and states listed this clearly and publicly so officers and residents know what to expect.
Well, I think this leads back to your previous question. Sometimes it's if you have contact, just call us. So it gets very unclear for the officers on the streets. That's why I saw the document that you produced actually very informative. So the issue is, what does the officer do if it says call ICE and it's only a civil enforcement? What do? Our officers are historically, once something comes in through PCIC or NCIC, which is the national version, they're required to take action. The issue is making sure that we give them clear guidance. So that's why we're going to be working with what the document you gave me to see how I can do a better job of pushing that out.
Thank
It's great
you
information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. Thank you for being here today. We'll next call our panel, Faith and Community panel.
Could Jay Lee of Worry Center, Kennedy Chisoli from the Center for Integration and Migrant Support, Marilyn Mihai Shepherd, Make the Road, Pennsylvania, Bishop Stephen Poyser, New Century Movement, and Daisy Romero Shararia from Juntos. Please come forward.
Member Brooks, did you mean to have your light on? Okay.
I'm Jay Lee. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jay Lee. 안녕하세요. 우리 센터 이재희입니다. Good morning, council members, neighbors, and fellow residents of Philadelphia. My name is Jay Lee, and I'm a community organizer at Uri Center. We serve Korean and Asian American community in Greater Philadelphia, and I'm here today to dismantle a dangerous myth that immigration is not an Asian issue. The data proves otherwise. Nationally, 1 in 7 undocumented people is of Asian descent, which represents 1.7 million people. And because of 65% of Asian Americans are foreign-born, any shift in immigration enforcement disproportionately destabilize our families. We're witnessing a dual crisis of enforcement and hate. Over the last year, ICE arrests of Asian immigrants have more than tripled. Yet 80% of those removed had no criminal convictions. This isn't about public safety. This is about tearing families apart. This aggressive enforcement fuels a climate of xenophobia. Between 2020 and 2024, Pennsylvania recorded 353 hate acts against Asian immigrants, with 144 occurred right here in Philadelphia. Our high school youth leaders report that anti-immigrant rhetoric and jokes about ICE, calling on ICE on you, have become a daily trauma in their hallways. Fear is high that local businesses like H-Mart have had to hire private security patrols just so Asian immigrant shoppers feel safe buying their groceries. The chilling effect is real. We see families withdrawing from SNAP and Medicaid out of fear. We see US citizen students abandoning FAFSA and opportunities to higher education to shield their family, undocumented parents from exposure. Mixed status families are living in such extreme psychological distress that some are choosing to self-deport just to escape the trauma of the potential detention. Language barriers, the fear of racial profiling have left our residents afraid to leave their homes. This isn't just a social crisis. This is also an economic one. Our small businesses face severe labor shortage and shrinking customer bases because our community is retreating into the shadows. At Uri Center, we aren't just waiting for help. We've conducted over 400 Know Your Right sessions for seniors, faith groups, and small businesses. We've trained 60 new volunteers throughout the year of 26 to turn education into a protective shield for the community. But we cannot do this alone. We need Philadelphia's leaders to do your parts. Our community needs to know that our police are not siding with ICE. We need to know that our city workers will not let ICE weaponize our data. We need to know that when ICE enters our neighborhood, they're required to take off their masks and show their faces. By passing the ICE Out package, Philadelphia can lead the Commonwealth. This is the essential step toward rebuilding the trust our residents deserve. Our families cannot wait any longer. We want ICE off our street. We want ICE off our streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Whoever wants to go next.
My name is Stephen Poyser. I represent the West Indian community of Philadelphia, a big community. Many think that this problem is just strictly to a Latino problem, but we still have a big problem with the Black West Indian community, as our dear friend alluded to. But our community has given so much to this city over the years. We have established a church. Our church is over 52 years going in the city of Philadelphia. We've contributed a lot to the city. Our community is being impacted deeply by this fear. The spiritual fabric of our church is starting to suffer because of fear. The fear of being deported, the fear of not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring. You can't even walk the streets. We have established a community feeding program, and the numbers, we used to feed over 300 on every other Saturday. That number is down to like 52. People are scared to come out just to get free food. The reality that we face is these children of immigrant families. The children are being affected. As a church, I hear all the problems. The first place that they run to is to the church. And that fear is disrupting everything that we know, which is normal living in America. America is a welcoming place. It welcomed my family over 50 years ago. It should not be in this position. We should not be sitting here discussing this. America is for all people, all races. The Bible tells us, because I'm a faith guy, the Bible tells us that even in the Old Testament, you could not glean the whole 100% of your field. You had to leave 10% for the stranger, for the alien, and for the foreigner. We're not seeing that today. Nobody has love for immigrants. The love has gone. Jesus himself had to flee into Egypt. He was an immigrant. Matthew tells us, I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was a stranger, America welcomed me. I did time in the military to pay back for America welcoming me. And I felt the need to do that. Today, so many families are disrupted by the fear of this administration in Washington. And we want ICE out. We're asking for the city of Philadelphia to move, to be at the forefront of disrupting their whole plan. Disrupt their whole plan. Let us stand firm. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Madam President, thank you so much. My name is Kennedy Chesoli. I'm the founder and executive director for the Center for Integration and Migrant Support. I represent African migrants in West Philadelphia and Southwest Philadelphia, and the organization serves refugees that have been resettled here primarily from the Congo. I would like to provide the following statement. SIMS operates Community Resources and Learning Center at 6104 Market Street in Philadelphia. This center provides essential services, including food access, education pathways, and also case management to help communities navigate the system that we have, including healthcare. We also help them find employment. The families that we serve are predominantly, as I mentioned, from sub-Saharan Africa who have resettled here. Last year alone, SIM served 1,025 individuals. 72 of these are people who receive food distribution each week. They would come to the center to collect the food. However, in recent months, we have observed real fear among the African migrant population. They are not showing up to collect the food. They are not showing up for the GED. They are not coming out for ESL classes, and they are hesitant to reach out for essential services. There is increased mistrust between the community we serve and the volunteers we sent out to provide assistance to them. They would simply not open the door to the volunteers. Indeed, I call upon this council to stand firm and denounce and reject ICE and get ICE out of our city. The Trump administration has hurt this community. This is the second time. The first thing they came into office, they took away federal funding and federal support to the refugees, many that have been resettled in this city. Because of that, they lost funding for housing, they lost funding for ESL, they lost support for case management, and now we are using our own resources to stabilize these families, and ICE is coming to disrupt our efforts. It's time for Philadelphia to say enough to ICE. Madam President, SIMS is a very small and new community-based organization that primarily serves these people. We're increasingly seeing significant rise in requests for assistance from individuals and other communities that are being harassed by ICE. This shift reflects both the growing trust in grassroots organizations like ours and the mounting strain on the broader support system. As the larger systems become overwhelmed or less accessible, more individuals are turning to SIMS and other small community-based organizations for support. For this reason, we respectfully urge the Council to not only pass ICE out package, but also to take necessary steps to provide resources and invest in these organizations so that we can be on the front lines of helping these communities. Targeted, flexible funding to expand capacity through staffing, program support, and operation infrastructure is urgently needed. Madam President, by investing in such organizations and by being resolute, SIMS and others can continue to meet rising demand, restore trust, and provide consistent, culturally responsive services to Philadelphia's community. Again, we join others in calling for clear, unequivocal stand against ICE. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Daisy Romero Chavarria, and I am the Director of Immigration Organizing at Juntos, a community-led Latinx immigrant rights organization based here in Philadelphia. I myself am a proud immigrant from Mexico and have dedicated the last 13 years of organizing around issues of immigrant justice, reproductive health, and women's rights. As the coordinator of our Rapid Response Hotline, I am here to share with you all how ICE's attacks have impacted the dignity, health, and safety of our people. ICE is here in our city right now, enacting a scale of attacks on our community that is almost unimaginable to us who have been doing this for years. Currently, Juntos is in direct contact with over 100 people who represent many races, languages, ethnicities, who were detained by ICE in or around Philadelphia, with whom we provide case guidance, commissary support, and visitation, or reconnection with family. Every week, we receive within 20 to 30 calls or texts reporting ICE activity in our city, and since launching our hotline, have gotten over 1,000 reports. From reports of ICE agents staging in public parking lots, to neighbors reporting unidentifiable men shoving our neighbor into an unmarked car, to families calling reporting that a loved one never made it home, we know firsthand how critical the ICE out bills are. Across our city, community members vulnerable to the threat of state-sanctioned kidnappings and disappearances come to us for support. Gaps in local protections have caused fear and mistrust in our communities, in our local government, pushing them more into the shadows and making them more vulnerable to flagrant human rights violations. One critical example of this is our accompaniment program, where we coordinate trained volunteers to accompany community members to vulnerable locations. In the last 6 months, 215 community members have not felt safe enough to go to local courthouses, police stations, ICE check-ins, medical appointments, and even grocery shopping. There are people who are not here today in this very building because of that same fear. At Juntos, we have the difficult custom of often meeting people on their worst day of their lives. Someone whose partner was racially profiled and detained on their way to work simply for existing. A child being bullied because of their immigration status. A family dealing with a serious health situation that has only been worsened by fear. The stories you see in the news, we meet the families behind them every day. In one case, a community member was leaving his home for work when plainclothes ICE agents tackled and detained him, despite only having a pending traffic court case. It remains unclear how they identified his address, since the home was under his wife's name, yet he was quickly transferred to the federal detention center in Philadelphia. There, Facing severe conditions and human rights violations, he was pressured into signing his own deportation and was gone within 3 days. This is exactly the kind of case these bills are meant to address, yet current gaps, including a lack of protections around how ICE operates within our communities and identifies and targets individuals, allowed this to happen. We had prepared a safety plan for his court date that was never used, and instead we shifted to crisis support, mutual aid so his family could stay in their home, referrals to mental health support for his children, notarizing custody papers in case the mother of the family was deported and children were left behind. The wife and children recently attended one of our first support group meetings for family impacted by deportation and detention, and she shared the lasting impact of her husband's detention and deportation has had on her family till this day. Without stronger protections, this kind of profiling and rapid detention continues unchecked and leaves a stain on us all. When this is happening every day, it erodes any sense that systems meant to protect people actually will. This is what our communities are carrying every day. We deserve to live with dignity, safety, and stability in the city they call home. And the city has the right to respond, not in theory, but in practice. The ICE Out legislative package matters because they respond directly to the fear, the harm, and the lack of accountability our communities are experiencing every day. We urge you to move this legislative package today. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes. Thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes Councilmember O'Rourke and then Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all that have testified already today. I was struck by the witness of Bishop Poyser. Is get that correct? Walter Brueggemann, recently deceased, may his memory be a blessing, said that the prophet always speaks an octave above the rest of us. The prophet traditionally understood being the person who speaks what God speaks. And I resonate with what you're articulating today. The administration, this Trump administration, this fascist regime, as it were, continues to posture itself as protecting Christian identity and combating anti-Christian bias. In fact, they've referenced on a number of occasions, kind of wantonly and with irrelevance, various biblical passages that the bold proceed, or the righteous proceed bold as a lion, things like that, in how they go forward with their immigration and customs enforcement policies. I think for me, I'm curious, as a faith leader in this community who is experiencing what you articulated you're experiencing. I also heard there were about 2 or 3 cardinals that came out the other day that bore witness to, I think, a 30% decrease in participation in mass that's catered towards the Latino community. So we're seeing a real impact on the church. As a leader in the capital C church, I wanted to know, does the current posture, from your view, of the Trump administration related to immigration and customs enforcement resemble in any way an authentically Christian faith that you recognize?
Thank you for that question. I can emphatically say no.
Thank you for your answer, Bishop. Certainly this conversation that we're having is within the domicile of the city of Philadelphia. But I do believe that there will be many, based off of the cameras that I see here, that will listen in to see what the city of Philadelphia is doing and how we respond in this moment. And I do think that regardless of what your faith background is, what your traditions might be, the moral voice in this moment, and I would argue that the moral voice of this country for the last 90 years has been the black church, some iteration of it, has got to stand up and speak clearly and say what we are experiencing and reclaim our moral authority, that we might have the kind of city that we all dream of and that we all deserve. So thank you for your prophetic witness today, sir, and for all of those who stand with you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So we have quite a list of speakers ahead. So I am going to ask that my colleagues be brief as possible, and that we have brevity in our answers as well, so that we can make sure everybody gets a chance to be heard, so that we can vote these bills out today, right? So Chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I just have a simple question, like what would your communities like to see out of the city of Philadelphia? What is the expectation? What do you guys want to see from this?
We would love to see you pass this law.
I'll take that as, that's it.
All right. Member Brooks, you good? Okay.
Yeah, I would like to say.
Oh.
I think just having a more pro-human approach to the situation. I think we're always talking about human beings, and the policies are just, like I mentioned at the beginning, and just very basic asks of our local government to stand up for people. So ultimately, like all of us have said, we want ICE out of our city, and we constantly hear that we can't do that. So this is just a very basic ask again, to do what's right for our folks.
Thank you.
It is important to pass this law, but also it is more important to be making sure that the law is implemented immediately and be in effect so that our people can trust and can call our police, can come to the city hall, can go to the immigrant courts without worrying about being under the surveillance.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think speaking from the birthplace of independence and liberty, the city of brotherly love, we cannot be timid against these dark forces. We cannot be scared. We expect us to stand firm and to send a message, clear message, that Philadelphia does not tolerate ICE.
That's right.
And that freedom is given to us, is non-negotiable. That every citizen has a right to operate freely without being harassed by Gestapo-style ICE. That message got clearly. Thank you.
That's it. That was my only question.
Thank you. Thank you all for your testimony and for being here today. We appreciate you being here and for your testimony and words of wisdom. We want to have the clerk call the next panel forward.
Yes. Would
Yeah, we're going to get her.
Marilyn Shepard come forward? That's Miss Marilyn Shepard with Make the Road, Pennsylvania. Also, Keisha Hudson, Chief Public Defender, Defenders Association, and Allison Sprague, Victim Witness Services of South Philadelphia. Please come forward.
Okay. Hello and good morning, council members. My name is Marilyn. People call me Mary. I am 14 years old, an Afro-Latina, and here as a youth leader with Make the Road PA. As you can see, I am not in school where I should be. Instead, I am here before all of you, missing school. Not so much because I wanted to, but because the state of my family, like many other families, depends on the passage of the ICE out package. What you can see about me now is my blackness, but what you can't see but should know is that I am the daughter of a Dominican mother and a Mexican father. Both immigrants who have committed no crime, just seeking a better life for my brother and I. As a young person, I spent a lot of my time on Instagram and TikTok, what used to be platforms for dance shares, vacation snaps, and memes have turned into platforms where I and kids my age are exposed to the state of the world falling apart. I've seen images and videos of families and children in Lebanon and Palestine being bombed. I've seen the destruction of animals' homes, and I have seen families like mine here in our country being brutalized and separated by ICE. That's a lot for someone my age to see, let alone live through. I don't want to keep seeing families be separated, because every time I see a family being separated by ICE online, I see that happening to me, to my family. In these videos, I have seen ICE violently force themselves into places and homes. I see them detaining people because they fit the description. And it scares me because that could be my family. I am 14 years old, and every day I'm reminded that what is happening to others in our country could happen to me. Every day I leave for school, I am filled with dread that it could be the last time I see my parents' faces. And it terrifies me because I know if my parents were taken from my brother and I, we would be put into the system. I have parents. Why does ICE want to take them away from me and other kids like me? Why do they want to separate us from families and drive us into the shadows? My mother is a powerful activist who used to advocate for not just us, but for all people who were in situations like ours. And now she is scared to speak her native language because she knows who is who. Since ICE doesn't wear uniforms that show clear identification, I'm 40 years old, and the scariest thing to me isn't spiders or the dark. The scariest thing to me is losing my family. Kids like me deserve to have our families united and our communities unafraid. The safety and stability of my family and many other families depends on this package passing. Please do this for us, the children of immigrants who have everything to lose. Please pass the ICE package now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, it is very much afternoon.
Please,
yes.
Please state your name and proceed with your testimony, although we're going to ask that you abbreviate where possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Keisha Hudson, a proud immigrant from Jamaica, and I'm here on behalf of the Defender Association of Philadelphia. I'm here today in strong support of this package of 7 bills, numbers 250056, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, and 62. As you know, as a subcontractor for the PIFUP contract, the Defender Association of Philadelphia provides representation to non-citizens who live, work, or go to school in Philadelphia and are at risk of detention and deportation. As of January of this year, we have represented 87 individual clients. They reside in every councilmanic district. While 2025 was our first year providing direct immigration representation, we have since the beginning been in partnership with the PIFUP Collaborative. Since its inception 6 years ago, this project has served over 200 individual clients, many of them Philadelphia residents and people who are detained in the following detention centers: Moshannon Valley Processing Center, Pike County Correctional Facility, Clinton County Correctional Facility, and the Federal Detention Center.
Through the work that we do, we see every day how local politics shape whether our clients feel safe accessing services in our community, whether appearing in court or seeking medical care or getting their children to school. The stakes of these bills are not abstract, they're deeply human, and they're immediate. This legislative package takes meaningful steps toward ensuring that all residents are treated with dignity and fairness. By limiting the collection of information about immigration status and establishing reporting requirements regarding interactions with federal immigration authorities, these bills help reduce the risk of discrimination. These bills help ensure that fear will not preclude people from accessing the services that they need. The prohibition on discrimination based on immigration status reinforces our city's commitment to equity. At the same time, good policies on paper are not enough. These policies, while essential, are only part of what we in the community need and the communities we serve need. The people these bills are designed to protect face complex and high-stakes legal proceedings. Our dedicated staff who does this work, we are only 4 attorneys who are doing this representation at the Defender Association, and I'm proud to have Lila Thompson here with me, who is the chief of our immigration legal practice, to talk about what our practice looks like. We need attorneys. Those attorneys and our clients need effective support required by trained investigators and mitigation specialists who can develop the full picture of a person's circumstances, as well as strong connections to trusted social services that help stabilize individuals and families. We all stood and applauded the young women who just previously testified. Every one of our clients who's come in contact with ICE and being brought through horrific detention conditions at various detention facilities, who are being subject to removal. The ripple effect on families and communities is horrific and widespread. We want to be able to not just provide legal services to the clients we represent, but also support for their families and their communities as well. Finally, we are grateful for Council's leadership in advancing this package of bills, and I am confident that the same energy and commitment will be brought to securing the funding necessary to provide these critical services. By investing in legal representation and community-based supports, the city can ensure that our residents not only have the protections they need, but access the full resources they need they will truly benefit from. Thank you for your time and continued support, and I'll answer any questions about our legal practice.
Thank you for your testimony. We're going to hold questions. Either of you state your name for the record. Whoever's going next, and proceed.
Good morning. My name is Allison Sprague, and I'm the Executive Director of Victim Witness Services of South Philadelphia. I want to begin by thanking Council for your strong support for the ICE Out package. We see this legislation as a critical step toward protecting the health and safety of Philadelphia residents. At VWSSP, we have spent the last 35 years working directly with victims of crime and communities impacted by violence. About 1/3 of the people that we work with and serve are immigrant victims. After experiencing violence, people need care. They need medical care, counseling, help navigating the justice system, and support recovering from financial losses. These services are essential to healing from violence. Until recently, we felt confident we could connect immigrant victims to these services just as we do for US-born victims. But over the past year, this has changed. With increased ICE enforcement, we have seen a 20% decrease in immigrant clients in our caseload. People are afraid. They're afraid to call the police, they're afraid to seek help, afraid to engage with the justice system at all. That fear makes it harder to identify victims and limits their access to critical services. The ICE Out package will provide much-needed assurance for these community members that information they share with public safety institutions will not be shared with ICE. Fewer people are reporting crimes. They inform our advocates they don't believe it's worth the risk, especially when masked ICE agents with the word police emblazoned on their vests are disappearing community members. Many believe that any interaction with law enforcement could put them at risk for deportation. The ICE Out anti-masking legislation is necessary to begin rebuilding confidence and trust in police. When crime is not reported, this doesn't just impact immigrant communities. It impacts public safety for everyone. And even when victims do come forward, many are too afraid to go to court. We've heard from the district attorney's office that the rate of domestic violence survivors missing court has doubled from 25 to 50% in just 1 year. When victims cannot safely participate in the justice system, cases fall apart, as do opportunities for people committing harm and violence to be held accountable. Survivors also lose access to essential support like relocation assistance, compensation for medical care, and trauma counseling because these services depend on some level of involvement with the system. The moments immediately after violence are critical. Survivors need to know that they are safe to file a police report, safe to go to a health center, safe to go to a domestic violence shelter. Prohibiting immigration enforcement on city property will greatly diminish fears of accessing these necessary spaces, when many now feel cut off from help entirely. Our advocates are now spending less time on healing and more time helping clients weigh the risk of seeking help at all. We are making safety plans, not just around violence, but around the possibility of detention and deportation. We're helping families figure out how children will get home safely from school when parents are afraid to leave their homes. This is what it looks like when fear replaced trust. What we are witnessing is a disruption of entire communities who feel they can no longer rely on the structures of public safety and services we all depend on. And when victims cannot safely access the justice system, everyone is impacted. Public safety depends on people feeling safe enough to come forward. It depends upon trust. All Philadelphia residents, regardless of where they were born, deserve to feel protected, supported, and able to seek help without fear. Thank you again for your leadership and for taking steps to send that message clearly.
Thank you for your testimony. Please state your name and proceed with your testimony if you want to move the mic over. Oh, you're not? Okay. Okay. We have, Chair recognizes Councilmember O'Rourke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is to, first of all, thank you all for your testimonies today and the work that you do in our city. I wanted to direct this towards Chief Defender Hudson. How is ICE's mandatory detention policy change impacting your clients, their families, and your agency's workload?
Thank you for your question. ICE's mandatory detention policy has disrupted our clients' lives and ability to participate in their cases dramatically. I'd like to give actually a case example because I feel like it really encompasses what our clients go through. We have a defender client who has lived in Philadelphia for over 6 years, an asylum seeker who fled cartel violence in Mexico. He was a skilled construction worker and drywall installer in our city. He employed other people, and he supported his partner and their 2 U.S. citizen children. He became a defender client because of a minor charge, which was withdrawn. But before he could even participate in his hearing, plainclothes agents detained him in an operation that they were conducting. And from ICE custody, he was subject to mandatory detention. This is because this administration has changed their policy. Individuals used to be eligible for bond to be released so they could participate in both their criminal proceedings and their immigration proceedings, and this administration changed that, subjecting 90% of individuals who previously were eligible for bond to a mandatory custody policy. Despite this, he still wished to fight his case, but after being beaten down by the conditions, shipped off to faraway detention facilities, separated from his family, unable to provide for them, he ultimately gave up, permanently separating him from his family. Many individuals like him are never able to resolve their criminal charges, are never able to participate in their immigration cases, are never able to see their family again. Now this family has to grapple with removing their children to his home country so they can all be together. This is a loss of 2 U.S. citizen children from this country. It is a loss of someone who works and thrives in our community and supports their partners. And individuals are being forced to self-deport because they cannot withstand what's happening in immigration detention. We, however, at Defender have started a pro bono habeas project to address this. And I think it's important to understand how many referrals we have received. Since February 27th of this year, we have already received 95 referrals for this project. That is because ICE is disappearing at least 95 people, and we have had to track them from the moment of inception with our partners to the detention facility and talk to them. We do this within 24 hours for every single individual. We have filed 33 habeas petitions since February 27th, and 23 of our family members and community members have been released from custody through immediate release. And this is because ICE's detention policy is illegal, and judges are finding that that is true.
Thank you for sharing that out. It's important for folks to be aware of this. I think another thing that's worth asking about is ICE's presence at the courthouse and how that is actually affecting your clients, defendants, victims, and witnesses that are there. Can you speak to that, please?
Of course. The defender has actually always tracked arrests at the courthouse since 2022, but over the course of this administration, things have worsened dramatically as ICE's presence and arrests at the CJC have increased. From January 2025 to present, we have confirmed 47 ICE arrests at the CJC, 1 at family court, and 2 traffic court arrests. Last week alone, ICE arrested 5 people outside the CJC, including a 76-year-old complaining witness.
You said last week.
Last week.
ICE arrested at least 5 people.
That we know of.
That we know of.
That we know of.
Outside of the courthouse here.
Yes.
Including a 76-year-old witness. Complaining witness.
Yes. They are loitering outside of CJC entrances, exits, in the lobby. They sometimes are in the CJC hallways. They are always in plain clothes. They never have visible badge or agency ID, and often their face are obscured by neck gaiters. ICE, as well as other federal agencies, are passing through CJC security points, waiting inside courtrooms or interior hallways to identify people for civil arrest. They are communicating with each other, and they are actively taking community members before they can even participate in their process. Many of these individuals, most of ICE arrests involve people who have no prior convictions, were charged with misdemeanor or summary offenses, and were only at the preliminary stage of their hearing. And many of these individuals have had their cases dismissed, either on the date that they're intending to go to court or shortly thereafter. Our clients are afraid to go to court. Witnesses are afraid to go to court. This is why we're seeing so many bench warrants, because people are fearful. The vast majority of people at ICE, arrested by ICE at CJC, remain in ICE custody until they were deported from the United States. This is shameful. We need to stop any collaboration with ICE whatsoever so we can have people feel safe accessing services.
Thank you for your testimony and what you have shared. I couldn't agree more. It is amazing to live in a time when you have espouse conservatives and those of a particular political tradition who continue to celebrate what is clearly an infraction on civil liberties. I think it was the, give me liberty or give me death was the retro call that so many folks will continue to lift up even to this day, and yet we support this sort of clearly secret police sort of activity in the United States of America. Thank you for pointing it out. Thank you for giving voice to it. We're going to make sure we get these bills passed so we don't have that here in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Much of the Trump's public justification for ICE is that it will make us safer. Do you think that's true?
No. I mean, in addition to all of the really important comments about the courthouse and people's willingness or ability to participate, people lose their access to things like victims' compensation if they do not cooperate with prosecution. They lose access to U visas. So people are having paths to benefits that they are completely cut off from. And I guess as somebody who's worked with victims for 30 years, I just find it incredibly offensive that this would in any way be the argument for safety when we see 100% of our immigrant clients, and I don't mean just people who are undocumented, I mean all immigrant clients afraid to go through the process. What do we think is going to happen here? It's not good. So no, not safer.
I would absolutely agree. This is not making us safer. It's not making our city safer. And I represent a client population, and I always use the opportunity when I'm here before council to remind everyone that my clients have a presumption of innocence. They are entitled to due process, right? Everyone in the United States, if you are on the soil of the United States, you're entitled to due process. And we are not seeing this administration afford people the rights and the process that all of us deserve. The majority, I think, Lila, it's over 92% of the people that we are representing have no criminal contact at all, 92. So we are not dealing with the worst of the worst, although, you know, as a public defender, that's my client community and how we may be perceived. But just wanted to remind us all that we are talking about our community members, our the people who sit next to us in the church or in the grocery stores, the people who work for us, work with us, and children and families and communities are really being devastated, and it is not because they are the worst of the worst, and it is not making us safer. In fact, we are devastating emotionally, psychologically, and financially a generation of Philadelphians.
Thank you. Thank you. And seeing that there are no further questions from the committee, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your attendance. And so, okay, thank you everyone for being here. The committee is going to stand in recess until 2:15 p.m. So we would like to invite you all to return at that time. We'll have 2 full panels, and then we'll have public comment as well. So thank you everyone for being here. We're intent on making sure we hear everyone who would like to testify. So we will see you at 2:15. Thank you.